stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rising up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his horns 10 crowns, and on his heads a blasphemous name. Welcome to the Revelation 13 podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Revelation 13 podcast. I'm your host, Mike Hopwood. Congress has just recently passed the Universal Health Care Bill and made it law. The full effect of this law won't be felt for several years, but the new taxes will begin immediately. To me, one of the worst aspects of this law is the provision that forces all Americans to buy health insurance or face fines and possibly jail. Never in United States history has the government tried to make all of its people buy a service. Congress and the President pushed it through even though they knew it was not wanted by the American people. Their agenda is apparently more important than the will of the American people. Over 13 states have filed legal challenges to the constitutionality of the law, and at some point it may come before the Supreme Court. While on the face of it, it would seem that the court would agree that the law is unconstitutional, you can never really know the outcome until it happens. Americans may be stuck with this law until a new president comes to office or enough people get elected in the Congress that can form a veto-proof majority of a law to repeal it. Conspiracy theorists for years have stated that the New World Order wanted to institute a universal health care plan in America, and they wanted to do this by the year 2000. Bill Clinton attempted to do this when he came into office after the 1992 election. And Hillary Clinton was responsible for writing most of the bill, but it was soundly rejected by the American people, and Bill Clinton didn't have the majorities that the Democrats now have in Congress to force it, but Obama has, and he did. So if the President and Congress don't listen to the voice of the American people, who they're supposed to serve, whose voice are they listening to? The earthquake in Haiti claimed 200,000 lives and devastated large portions of the country, and this seemed to set off a chain reaction of earthquakes in different areas of the world, with one hitting the west coast of the U.S. Fortunately, these earthquakes didn't end up with the massive loss of life that Haiti had, and Chile had a massive 8.8 on the Richter scale earthquake that destroyed large amounts of its infrastructure. This earthquake was the 17th strongest in recorded history, and according to NASA research scientist Richard Gross, who works for the NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California, the quake may have shortened the length of days on Earth by 1.26 milliseconds and shifted the Earth's figure axis by 3 inches. Strong earthquakes have altered the length of days in the past. The 9.1 Sumatra earthquake in 2004 that caused the tsunami in Indonesia shortened the days by 6.8 microseconds and shifted the Earth axis by 2 3/4 inches. The Chile earthquake had more effect on the axis of the Earth, even though it was a smaller quake, because of its location on the Earth. Its location on the Earth makes it more effective at shifting the Earth. During the tribulation, the Bible states that the days will be shortened. Some believe this has meant the time of the tribulation would be shortened. Others feel it's talking about the length of the days on the Earth. Major earthquakes are also predicted for the tribulation, so you can see massive earthquake or series of super earthquakes could dramatically shorten the days of the Earth. A strangely engraved stone has researchers guessing at its origin and who's responsible for making it. In 1933, we had the discovery of the Los Lunas Mystery Stone. This stone, located near Los Lunas, New Mexico, has engraved on it an abbreviated form of the 10 Commandments, and next to it, a tamarisk tree. This tree is native to the Middle East and is believed to be the type of tree that Abraham planted in Beersheba when he called upon the name of the Lord. The Hebrew letters in the inscription have been identified as Paleo-Hebrew, an early form of Hebrew writing around 500 BC. There are also Greek letters in the inscription. In 1996, a James Tabar of the Department of Religious Studies interviewed a now deceased Frank Hibben, who was a retired New Mexico archaeologist. Hibben stated that he first saw the inscription in 1933 when he was taken there by a guide who had seen the Mystery Stone as a boy in the early 1880s. Estimates for the dating of the carvings range between 500 to 2,000 years old. There is a lot of speculation on who's responsible for the carving on the stone. Some think sea-traveling Jews at the time of Solomon may have carved the stone, in part because of the ancient form of Hebrew that is written on it. Some suggest that the engraving could have come from Samaritan ship owners who, during the time of the Byzantine Empire, those Samaritans were known to live in Greek communities, which could explain the use of Greek letters. Samaritans were people who only had one Jewish parent. If the carving is pre-Columbian, it could be proof of Jewish contact with the New World at some point in their history, probably from the time of Solomon, or one of the several times that they were dispersed throughout the world. There is a possibility that the stone was engraved in the 15 to 1600s, when King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella freed Spain from Muslim domination. They decreed that all the Jews living in Spain must convert to Christianity or leave the country. Many stayed on and converted, and the Spanish called them conversos. Some of these conversions may have been external and not a true conversion of faith, and some of these conversions could have come with the conquistadors and possibly settled in New Mexico and possibly carved the stone as a memorial to Jehovah. Recently, scientists in Melbourne, Australia successfully used a ventilator and pump to keep a pig's lungs alive and functioning while human blood flowed through them. Dr. Glenn Westall, who helped conduct the experiment, stated that the blood went into the lungs without oxygen and came out with oxygen, which is exactly the function of the lungs. It showed that these lungs were working perfectly well and doing what was expected of them to do. This is a significant advance compared to experiments that have been performed over the past 20 years. The scientists were able to achieve success by removing sections of pig DNA and putting in human DNA. This allowed the pig's lungs to be compatible with human blood. Attempts in the past to use unmodified pig lungs were unsuccessful and ended when the human blood began clotting and blocking the flow of blood into the organ. Experts believe that this could lead to the first human-animal transplant within 5 years. The head of the International Monetary Fund has touted the idea that at some point the IMF may be called upon to provide countries with a new global reserve currency as an alternative to the US dollar. Dominique Strauss-Kahn stated that the day has not yet come, but I think it is intellectually healthy to explore these kinds of ideas now. Having other alternatives to the dollar would limit the extent to which the international monetary system as a whole depends on the policies and conditions of a single, albeit dominant country. Russia and China have